services so that people who cannot attend today will be able to watch it at a later time. So just an FYI, please don't stop the recording. Not that that's happened before, but it has. So welcome to the workshop, and we will get moving on to the next slide. We're going to start out today with Allison Johnson from WPTO. She's going to talk to us a little bit about our STEM project and why STEM is important to DOE. Allison? And can we make sure that everybody's muted real quick, just while we're at the beginning here? And Allison just joined. Hi, Allison. Perhaps.
While we're waiting for her, I thought I could just maybe we could go a little out of order, which is totally fine. Gives her a few more minutes to get on board here. This dialogue series, another reason why we want to record is because this dialogue series in particular, as in the other ones as well, we're really trying to gather as much information as possible on what a hydropower collegiate competition can look like in order to best meet the needs of our hydropower community. So we're gathering information in lots of different ways across our agenda today. And this won't be the first time we're asking the community of academia and industry these types of questions, because we're also going to want to continually refine a competition as well as years go by if we're able to do it for multiple years. And maybe you could just go back to the agenda. I'll spend like 20 seconds, a little bit, to let people know what to expect on this call. After Allison Johnson, who's leading this initiative, Allison Johnson is leading this initiative from WPTO. Then we'll talk a little bit more, just very briefly, about our water STEM project, and then quickly go into why we have been wanting to host a hydropower collegiate competition. And so we'll share some analysis that supports that and survey results that have supported it. And then we're going to share with you some preliminary thoughts around the timeline, what an application could look like, how much budget per team to develop successful teams, and then different competition themes and components. And so we really are we're hoping to get as much interaction as possible. We're trying to seed that interaction through some fun tools like Jamboard and Poll Everywhere and that type of thing. But overarchingly, we just would love for you to, as we're talking about things, unmute, share your thoughts, because this will really shape our thinking around hydropower collegiate competition. And we'll continue to keep this dialogue open through different forums to, again, refine and then continually refine a competition. Thank you. Allison, are you on?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Wonderful. Okay.
Yeah. Well, thanks everyone for joining. Yeah, my name is Allison Johnson. I work for the Department of Energy's Water Power Technologies Office. I'm the engagement and outreach lead, and in that capacity, as you heard, I get to work with this great team of people on everything related to water power, STEM, and workforce. So by joining this call, I'm going to make an assumption that many, if not most of you, probably know a good deal about hydropower, maybe have worked in hydropower for years. So I'm probably not going to tell you a lot that you don't already know, but I do want to emphasize, not only what sort of a critical time it is right now for hydropower for many reasons, but then secondly, why the Department of Energy is so interested right now in really investing in the future workforce for the hydropower industry. So again, I assume many of you probably know a good deal about hydropower, but it really is beyond being just the majority of energy storage, for the grid, is certainly becoming increasingly important as we see the grid changing, as we see variable renewables coming, more and more online. Despite the heat wave and drought and what's happening out west, and probably many of you know about the hydro facility that is offline currently because of the water levels, kind of reaching record low levels out there. Despite all that, it still plays such a critical role in the reliability and the resiliency of our grid. And we expect it to become, increasingly important just, in years to come. That being said, also the need to understand and really better assess and predict the type of impacts that climate change will have on hydropower is, again, just by the example I just mentioned and with Orville, it's just going to become increasingly important. So there's both a real need to, ensure that the facilities we have today are modernized and able to meet the demands of our changing grid, as well as a real need to kind of understand, changing grid impacts, climate change impacts, and what that means for these facilities. Next slide, please. Again, something I'm sure you all know, but hydropower and pump storage, these facilities provide so much more than just energy generation and storage, right? Most facilities exist for multiple purposes. They can provide recreation, irrigation, et cetera, et cetera. There is, and most of the dams, of course, in the U.S. Were not created for, generation purposes, of course. And with that being said, there's still a ton of opportunity, for some of the existing dams to be upgraded to have hydropower generation capabilities. So that's something that we at the Department of Energy are really interested in. And if you're following the infrastructure bill at all, you'll see that Congress is very interested, in the opportunity to power many of the country's non-powered dams as well. Next slide, please. And so we at the Department of Energy, we are really interested in ensuring, sort of, as I said, that the existing hydropower fleet, it maintains its flexibility, that both existing hydropower projects and future projects are, of course, low impact, meaning, they have as minimal or negligible environmental impacts as possible. And definitely, the regulations today are not what they were 100 years ago when some facilities were built. So, and then data-driven, modern, and secure, and leveraging new value opportunities as they are presented through, different opportunities, either in power markets, and also thinking about the additional benefits that hydropower facilities provide and ways that we can monetize those benefits. These are things that we at DOE are really interested in. And we think that, we're looking at hydropower in a way that could be really exciting for a future generation, because for all the reasons I've just said, we see that this is an incredibly important and still innovative field that even requires more innovation to ensure that we're fully providing hydropower capabilities to the grid of the future. Next slide, please. And a little bit about the hydro workforce. So, I'm being a bit of a cheerleader today for hydropower, right? And we need a talented and skilled workforce to ensure that this industry is fully supported. So jobs found in all 50 states, and especially a lot of the hydropower jobs that are, actually on-site operational jobs are, of course, in rural parts of the country, where I think we all know that sometimes there's just not always a lot of investment in some of these communities. And so the jobs that do exist there with hydropower are incredibly important to those communities. Typically, we see something in hydro, which is typical of some other power sectors as well, where, you might have a family where they've had generations, of people working in hydropower. So I can't emphasize enough, of course, the kind of, importance that hydropower can have in a surrounding community. Big reason we're really interested in this topic is, the demographics of the hydropower workforce, and especially the fact that such a large percentage of the current workforce is basically retirement eligible or will be very soon. So that second bullet on the screen, that's a statistic that it's pretty mind-boggling when you think that, about roughly a quarter of the workforce could retire like tomorrow. That says a lot. That definitely says that even if we don't, expect, let's say, like there's no growth in the number of overall hydro jobs in the next 10 years, just theoretically, I mean, that's still a huge amount of turnover and a very critical need to hire in large quantities just based on retirements alone. And I do want to say, that I think a lot of the world has, been thinking very critically, right, about what diversity means in a workforce and the value, both monetary, but even non-monetary value that diversity can bring in a sector. I actually think that it's pretty remarkable that the hydropower sector, on a number of lines is far more assume, or at least one might assume for the energy sector in general. I think we all know that gender diversity it probably still has a ways to go for the industry. So these are all things that I think, if you think about 26% of the workforce basically needing to be replaced in the next few years, these are all things that we actually have an opportunity to really influence right now. But the problem is, per the last bullet on the slide, that really there are still to date so few hydro-specific degrees or training programs. There's not really like any standardized sort of training across the industry, not at least a big certification program or something more formal like that. And despite that, there is demand, as we've heard through surveys with industry. By looking at the demographics alone, we know that there will be increasing demand, again, based on retirements alone. So what can we do to change this? Next slide, please. Oh, and actually, I forgot I threw the slide in here. I mentioned the infrastructure bill earlier. So there is, roughly $1 billion, I guess 900 million is a little bit more exact, of hydropower and marine energy related funding included in the infrastructure bill that was just passed by the Senate a few days ago. So most of that is for hydropower. I think there's a 40 and 70 million, 40 million carve out, and then a second 70 million carve out for marine energy. But that means it's more like $800 million for hydropower projects in the current version of the infrastructure bill. That's in addition to a $200 million budget request from President Biden for my office, which funds hydropower research. So when you add that up, I'm not even counting all of the funding that goes to the Corps and the Bureau, but I will count this and my office because this is all funding that pretty much goes out the door to industry or to research institutions. So we're talking about $1.1 billion in hydropower and marine energy research funding for the sector in FY22, if the bill looks anything like it currently does. So that's huge. And that's a lot of opportunity. It definitely is keeping me up at night right now, thinking about all the work that my office is going to have pretty soon. But that's an incredible opportunity. And I think it's a really exciting time to think about how we can kind of, let's say, jumpstart, some of these workforce outreach and development efforts for this industry as well. Next slide, please. And so one of the ways that we are looking, to address this problem is, of course, recruiting and doing what we can to inspire the next generation of the workforce to replace that aging workforce. we're actually working on a couple of ideas right now and thinking about how to support even university research and other ways of supporting hydro training programs outside of academia. And then again, kind of just to emphasize, like I do think that, you know, anyone working in the federal government can appreciate the sort of platform that we have and the megaphone that we have sometimes. So I'm really interested in, from a communications perspective as well, putting out content out there that can really inspire that next generation of workforce and maybe at times really even challenge some misconceptions or just perceptions about the industry. Next slide, please. Yeah, so one of the ways that we are right now looking to address this and advance these priorities is through a hydropower collegiate competition. And we are quite simply leveraging what we have experience doing and what we know works. Right now on this slide, you're seeing just some maps showing the teams that are currently participating and have participated in our Marine Energy Collegiate Competition. You know, the competition, as you can see here, it's currently in its third year. We've had dozens of universities, hundreds of students and faculty as a part of this. We've got a lot of really good stories about students that have participated in the competition and been hired by marine energy developers. And I have to say that we have some great stats on also the minority serving institutions that have participated. I think in the first year of this competition, we had 1 HBCU, 2 HSIs, 1 community college, and then we also had a public school in Hawaii, so Asian American Pacific Islander institution. So that's pretty phenomenal too. And I am really excited to talk to you all and hear your ideas about whether you think this approach is going to work for the hydro sector. And if so, kind of your thoughts on design, focus, structure, et cetera, for this type of a competition. Thank you all so much for your time.
Wonderful, Allison, that was great. And I think on the next slides, I was going to show a few talking about the significance of hydropower. I couldn't say it better than what you just said. So please, Maddie, if you wouldn't mind going straight over to Bree's slide on the goals for this dialogue. Thank you. Oh, sorry. This is this water STEM project. I thought that I had my other slides there. Has lots of different components, and you've heard a bunch of those: MEC, our Marine Energy Collegiate Competition, analysis work, our web portal. We've been holding these dialogue series to collect information and make sure that we were in alignment. And this collegiate competition for hydropower is going to be a big part of this going forward as well. Go to the next slide, please. And these are the slides you can skip. It's essentially the potential of hydropower and why we need a collegiate competition. Bree.
Yes, so my name's Bree and I am with the Hydropower Foundation. And as many of you know, we are a 501c3 that have been working to further the future of hydropower through education, research, and workforce development. So we've been partnering on this particular project with WPTO and NREL for the last few years. And this hydropower collegiate competition has been something we've been talking about for a long time. So it's really exciting today to be able to actually talk to you about it and let you know that this is something that we've been considering. And after seeing all the success that the MEC has had, the Marine Energy Collegiate Competition, we felt it only necessary that hydropower gets to have one too. We don't want hydropower to get left out. We want to provide students with a real world experience and education in hydropower so that when they're choosing their career paths, they know hydropower has a lot of opportunity and they're making a sound judgment compared to what all of the other industries out there where they could work. So with no further ado, we're going to move right into the next topic, which is Jennifer. Jennifer Daw is going to talk to us about some of our workforce analysis that we've done over the life of this project.
Great. Thank you, Bree. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. I will take that as a yes. All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jennifer Daw, and I'm a senior researcher at NREL. Over the past few years, I've been working on the STEM project, and in particular, taking a deep dive on the analysis side of things. As mentioned, we want to make sure that our work is in alignment and kind of ground truth with what the needs are of the hydropower industry. And so we've been studying that. And starting in 2019, we first reached out to schools in the United States, including community colleges, universities, and maritime academies for marine energy, to understand the type of programs and perceptions and challenges that they have around the hydropower industry. We also have surveyed students in the past year, and then finally industry. And again, to just get a better understanding of what's going on and how can we better address the challenges associated with the educational pipeline between academia and industry. So if you'd like to go to the next slide, I'll give you a high-level overview of some of our initial findings. And if anybody would like to know more, you can also feel free to reach out to me and I'm happy to share with you. So again, the first study that we conducted was our curricula assessment in 2019. And a goal was to better understand the types of programming, the types of research facilities, what the research focus might be, what kind of partnerships they have around hydropower. We distributed surveys to schools that we knew were active on the topic of hydropower and leveraged a lot of our relationships with the Hydropower Foundation as well as NREL contacts to distribute these. Next slide, please. So I want to share just some high-level findings of the programs that exist in the United States. We found 69% of schools do not have hydropower degree programs, and a little over a third of them cited lack of sufficient funding as being a primary reason. We did find that there were more associate degrees in community colleges where students could specialize in hydropower. Only 2 of the schools that responded to us had dedicated hydropower courses. If hydropower is covered, it's mainly as part of other energy courses, and oftentimes it's one day, so it's not extensive. Only about half of the schools that responded include practical applications associated with hydropower, things like capstone projects, for example, where they're doing in-depth research. And schools observe a growing interest in renewable energy by their students, but there is limited student awareness in the hydropower industry, and particularly the type of jobs that might exist there for them. We go to the next slide, please. So as follow-on to this, we thought, let's talk to the students and get a better understanding of what the students are thinking. And so we sent out a survey to students, similar schools that we reached out to distribute it to students. We also work to push this out to minority serving institutions and through other channels associated with our project partners, including NEED and the Hydropower Foundation, to get more responses on this topic and again, better understand student perceptions. Next slide, please. Our findings, so students see hydropower as a clean, renewable form of energy, which is positive. And in fact, we asked them to rank renewable energy generation technologies in order of preference. And the list there shows their ranking where hydropower was actually number 3 in a list of 10, which is very, very positive. So I think there's interest. We found that if students are learning about hydropower, if at all, it's high school and maybe college, but a lot of them are self-taught and they're informed by going online and looking things up on their own. Many don't know necessarily what reputable sources are either from that standpoint. Students don't see hydropower as a growing field. We did receive some responses saying they saw it as a solved problem. So I think they really didn't have a sense of what was going on in the industry anymore. As Allison mentioned, there are a lot of kind of generations of families working in hydropower, which is great. And so I think there are students who have a sense of what hydropower is from that perspective, but they're not seeing it as a growing field or understanding the new technologies or the innovation taking place within these industries. I think there also is a decent amount of negative association with hydropower. When asking students what they thought of, they would say dams. And again, not really understanding all the different aspects of hydropower and how these systems work, let alone the efforts around environmental mitigation associated with the latest efforts for hydropower. I think there's also not much understanding from students about the role of hydropower when it comes to operating the grid and deep decarbonization, the power and the energy storage provided through the renewable energy. So a lot of these things I think came out to us as areas that were gaps in the knowledge for students and things that they should be better informed of so that they might have more interest in working in hydropower professions. They also didn't have a good handle on where the industry was going. I think they had a sense that it was kind of status quo, that there wouldn't be much growth there. And so that was another perception that we heard from students. Next slide, please. So the final survey we conducted was from the hydropower industry. Again, sent it through similar distribution channels as well as with help from NHA and WHA. And we were trying to get a sense of how well students are performing who have recently entered the workforce, whether they finished a GED or a PhD. We wanted to see how prepared they were for jobs in the hydropower industry. Next slide. So a key takeaway, unfortunately, student hires have limited to no knowledge of hydropower or hands-on experiences. That's what a lot of employers were saying. Only about 10% of respondents in the hydropower industry said students were well prepared for their jobs. And again, this is a function of who responded to us. About 22% of industry are providing basic education on hydropower for new hires who are coming in with very little to no knowledge. They did find that if students were knowledgeable in hydropower, it's because they've had internships or work experiences before entering the industry. The good thing is students nowadays are able to use a lot of the relevant software, and they feel that that's very valuable, and they could understand the basics of what hydropower was, but from an industry perspective, we're not as informed. And finally, the students did not have as much understanding of technologies, of the environmental mitigation measures, kind of how these systems operate, what kind of services they provide to grid, and how they work with the power market. Next slide. So I think another area that we heard from in the industry survey was also the challenges that are being faced by the industry itself. There are recruiting challenges where students with a STEM degree, or frankly, a lot of other types of degrees, are in high demand for a variety of different industries where they may be able to pay more, or they might get to go to a different destination that might be more appealing to them. And so that is a recruiting challenge within the hydropower industry, as well as the fact that students may not have the right skills coming in the door. And so there is a learning curve when they're entering that industry. And so some of the key suggestions we heard from the industry were we can help to strengthen that education to workforce pipeline by promoting more relevant work experiences for students, whether that's capstone projects, internships, co-op jobs. We can incorporate more hydropower coursework into STEM programs, but also recognize there are opportunities out there for students who are not in STEM programs. Increase engagement of industry in academia through tours or industry perhaps helping provide oversight on capstone projects or even assist in a competition, for example. And finally, to increase hands-on learning opportunities so that students really understand what they're getting into and have stronger skill set when they're entering the workforce. Next slide. All right, and I think that's it for me. So thank you.
Okay, so because we really like surveys, we are sending out another survey for the potential of the Hydropower Collegiate Competition. We want to know what industry feels, what students feel, and what professors feel. We would like to have you respond to that. And it has been circulating already. We have not completed it by any stretch. It's still out there. It's still being circulated. So we still are collecting answers to it and responses. And so we want to make sure that you know that sometimes my emails go to junk mail. So make sure that any emails, but just check your junk mail every once in a while and see if you have an email from the foundation or from Bree, because we really do want to, we don't want to do all of these things in a bubble. We want to make sure that we're communicating with all of you. So if you see that survey come through, make sure that you are completing it. If you'll go to the next slide, we do have a few just kind of initial responses from the survey that we thought we would share with you. Initially, for the industry, the most beneficial, what the most beneficial focus would be for the industry was hydropower integration with other renewables, which may not come as a huge surprise. So I'm interested to see how that continues to uptick. The second was pump storage, small hydro, or run of river, and then social equity and environmental justice, followed by environmental mitigation, and followed by cross-sector challenges. And there were a few other ideas that were thrown in there, because in the survey there is an option to put your own topic area if it's not listed. So that'll be interesting to see how many other ideas come from that. So far, industry feels that doing a challenge on conventional hydro would attract more of the next generation to hydropower, which I thought was interesting as well. And I wanted to throw that out because this is a dialogue. It's not just us talking to you. So we want to make sure that we're asking for your feedback. And I'm curious, just right off the cuff, if you agree with that. The other options, obviously there's a lot of options, but the ones that we gave are run of river, pump storage, in conduit, or in pipe hydro. What are your thoughts? Do you have any ideas on what you think that the next generation would be attracted to in order to come and work in hydro? Oh, the silence.
Hey, Bree, this is Erin Foraker from
Yeah.
I'll maybe try and kick that one off a little bit. I mean,
Sure.
I think what attracts young people to a more mature industry is really where they see the opportunity for them to use their skills, the things they've learned in, either in college or high school, and to be able to translate that into something real. So I think when I think of run of the river or pump storage, I don't really separate that. I think of it more in people want to contribute what they're good at, because they want to feel good about what they're doing. So in my view, it's more about figuring out how do we frame things in a way to get young people excited and see I can step in here and actually contribute and make a difference.
Thank you. That's awesome.
And this piece will dovetail very nicely into Erin's conversation on themes as well, in just a little bit.
Michael, go ahead. I see your hands up.
I'm actually just flashing back to when I was involved in the DOE Better Buildings case competition back in 2012 and 2013 as a PhD candidate, and I was probably closer to an undergraduate at the time in terms of energy knowledge, and I was jumping in out of excitement and out of a desire to learn less about where I knew I was going. And that was a little bit more of a consulting style case competition. So point is on the student end, maybe not on the industry end. I remember jumping in and we had undergraduates, graduate, PhD students. Maybe this might be better for a later part, but I'm tracking all the DOE student competitions, and they're very diverse in how they're set up out of EERE and out of NREL. And so there's a lot of pieces out of them that there's some design elements here that I think you're getting at. So.
Great. Becky?
I mean, I'll just add that I think some of the interest might be location specific or geographic specific. I know when I work with students, like upper high school students, if they're from like a city, they're really interested in the concept of like in pipe hydro, right? Because like that's something that they can relate to, and that's something that they see affecting their community. Versus if we're working in more rural areas, the ideas of run of river or pump storage are maybe more appealing to them because there's something that would be more applicable to their area. So I definitely think that like some of it is just kind of dependent on where you are and what students you're talking to.
Cool, thank you. And Mark.
So I used to do slide presentations to college students to get them interested in careers in water resources and hydro. And one of the things I would really bring to play were the outdoor opportunities, the fact that, you know, you get paid to go hiking while you're doing your site visits, that there are even days when you get to go river rafting and get paid to go river rafting and not shell out $100. So, you know, I think appealing to people who have that interest in the outdoors. I know there's like a scouting merit badge in engineering. So people that sort of already bring that predisposition to wanting to be working in the natural environment would be, you know, that's a good recruiting channel, and trying to highlight the psychic income you get from, you know, working up close to Mount Shasta, or being up in Alaska working on a river near Mount McKinley, or going skiing the day after you finish wrapping up a hydro project in the Sierras and heading to Heavenly Valley. You know, just really focusing a lot on those opportunities. And at the same time, you know, you're saving the world, you're reducing carbon emissions, you're dealing with a renewable, and, you know, really try and sell the because a lot of students today are not as motivated by necessarily the bottom line paycheck as they are by the feeling that they really will give something back to society.
Absolutely.
Thank you
Love
for that. That was great. Yep. Great.
Thanks, Elise, or Mark, sorry. So moving on to the next top choice for industry was to have a competition. Oh, can you go back to the last slide? Sorry. I know we do need to move on, but the top choice for industry was to have a structure, and it tied actually between business plan and test competition. So that I thought was really interesting. And then, okay, now you can move to the next slide, please. And then that kind of ties in with some of the responses that we got from our educators and our students. The students actually, they chose to have an analysis as their top choice for a competition structure. So I thought that was interesting. And again, this is not complete. So by no means, this is just mostly for our information and to see where things will continue to move as more of these, more responses come in. Students, when they think of hydro, they think of clean energy, ecosystem and environmental impacts, water management, pump storage. So a lot of the same things that Jennifer mentioned earlier. We also learned from educators that they feel like there's an opportunity to align a competition with curricula and academic credits and other incentives. And so what we want to know from you in this survey is just that. Where should we look for universities that can offer that, and how do they offer that? There's got to be competitions out there that already are aligned with universities. So if there's some red tape we have to get through, you know, it'd be nice to be able to work with some of the other universities that have already gone through that. Students felt that winter break or summer break would be an ideal time frame for actually attending an in-person competition, and we are focused on an in-person competition. That is the ultimate goal. We're going to get through COVID and do all of this in person. Educators recommended winter break, and students felt that they would measure a successful competition by gaining experience, just participating in the competition. That was ranked #1. And #2, networking with potential employers and developing their skills for employers and learning about hydro and the job opportunities that hydro offers. And then we'll go right into the next slide. And so that's just a little bit of what we've heard from the survey so far. So we'll continue to collect those responses and then be able to share those with you at a later date. Just to give you a little bit of background, the Hydropower Foundation has created a program called the Hydro Think Tank, and that originated in 2018. in the Southeast and at Logan Martin Dam. And we have now also done it in the Pacific Northwest, where we bring together regional universities to compete and solve a hydropower problem. This is usually about a 3 to 5 day competition where students get to learn about hydro. They get totally immersed in everything hydro because we're usually at a utility where they can do tours and they can see all of the different careers that are possible, because we're walking around a hydropower plant where we can meet fish biologists that are there testing the water, and we can meet operators and engineers. And so there's just a lot of opportunity for them to see all the different jobs and how many happy people there are in hydro in their jobs, because most people that work in hydro are pretty passionate about what they do. And so with that said, we decided that it would be really cool to host a hydro think tank at NHA's Clean Currents Conference. So our plan is to bring that program to Clean Currents in 2022 and do just that, bring all the students within that region to solve a hydropower problem. And in addition to that, we would use that as a launching off point for the Hydropower Collegiate Competition. And we would combine all of the students together into teams to work on this competition. But additionally, they would get the benefit of networking with the industry professionals there and potential employers, really, and get to see a behind the scenes look at hydropower by being there at the conference. So it'd be a really cool way to educate the university students about, the career opportunities in hydro, and to launch the Hydropower Collegiate Competition and be able to, assign roles and get the students into their leadership positions and set out the competition schedule. So that's our preliminary plan. The next topic is, let's see, we have a polling question, it looks like. So Maddie, if you want to pull up the polling question, and I'll enter into the chat. We'll go in and log in to Poll EV again, and you'll be able to answer the question. What would be the most critical outcome of the competition for you? How would you measure success? So you guys heard earlier how students measure success, but what do you think? Student participation, program design, interaction with students, observing their skills and abilities to critically think. I lost it, I can't see it anymore. Exposure to career opportunities. Very cool. Engagement of students with each other and solving the problem presented. And students working in teams through complete challenge. Can't read the rest of that. Sorry, my computer goes down and then I can't see the options. Communication, number of repeat universities and professors over time. Very cool. All right, and you guys can continue to enter your answers into this. But next up we have Elise. She's going to talk to us about a potential timeline for the competition. Elise?
Yes, thanks. So we feel like one of the more important things that we need to do alongside development of a Hydropower Collegiate Competition is to help kind of rebrand and re-energize the hydropower industry. And we have a little tagline, making hydropower electric. So we, as we ask you questions throughout the rest of the session today, if we can somehow weave in or ask ourselves the question, how can this particular contest or this particular idea for inclusion in a hydropower collegiate competition, how can that really serve to inspire and re-energize the industry through the new emerging workforce? Please go to the next slide. So a quick timeline. I'm interchanging between a hydropower collegiate competition. I'm just talking nomenclature now, and a hydroelectric collegiate competition. We really don't know what we want to call it yet. We'd love your opinions on that if you want to put it in the chat at any time. Maybe we'll have a poll on this later. I can't recall, but we kind of like the idea of a hydroelectric collegiate competition because we also have a marine energy collegiate competition. So we'll have a mech and a heck, but not everybody is in support of that. So we've had some fun.
We're not sold on that yet.
We're not sold, but we've had some debate over that. But there's also hydro collegiate competition, or probably lots of other things we can call it. But I don't mean to digress. I just wanted to bring that up because we are interchanging in this PowerPoint with different names. Very briefly, we are entering into fiscal year 22. The quarters start. Q1 support starts in October, so it's October to December, just to orient you. Not everybody's fiscal year is the same, but right now in that October to December timeframe, we're going to support the think tank that Bree was talking about, in hopes that we will incorporate this approach into a collegiate competition. And we are developing a go, no go, and that will go to the Water Power Technologies office and Allison's team to determine whether this is something they want to go forth with. So all the input we get from you today will be utilized in that go, no go that we'll get from DOE. And if we have a go, we're going to quickly in Q2, January to March timeframe, prepare the application and the rules and requirement documents. And we'll share and include all of the lessons learned we get from the activity that Bree was talking about at Think Tank as well. Q3, again, April to June of next year, we'll start outreach on the competition. We'll release the application and rules and requirements. And we will keep that application open for a while because this is the first year. We'll close it around July, select the teams, and then hold a virtual kickoff in August. And then the school year will begin. We'll have the team selected. We'll have a fall they will perform the activities, the tasks of the rules and requirements over the fall and spring semesters. We were thinking about having the fall semester student lead event or kickoff meeting perhaps occur at Clean Currents, so we can get all the student leads and some delegates together to have a mixer, to network together, to be introduced to some of the hydropower challenges and opportunities. And then throughout the year, we would hold educational webinars and help guide the teams through discussions, introduction to the industry, and then host the first hydro collegiate competition in May or June at Water Power Week or similar. So we also would love ideas on where would be the best place to host an event like this. And then we would develop lessons learned and hopefully repeat and continually improve. Just wanted to give you a lay of the land, a potential timeline. If you can go to the next slide. And some of the initial things that we're thinking of. Everything you're going to see from here on out is initial thoughts that we'd love your opinions and suggestions. Application process, we're thinking keeping it simple. That's worked out real well for us with the Marine Energy Collegiate Competition. Really focusing on how are you going to organize your team? What is your plan to get to competition? How can you engage and also help to incorporate some more hydropower education at the institutions at which the teams are being formed. We would like to release it likely in the February timeframe. Again, keep it open for as long as possible. And then also we were thinking that we should let people know before they depart for the summer. We would give some prize funding as budget allows, about 10 to 15K per team. And we would give it as prize funding. And we would work on outreach on informational webinars concurrent with the release and as much and as often as possible. So we have a couple questions for you. And Bree, help me out. Was this a...
this is a Jamboard. I'm actually putting it in the chat right now. So if you guys will go to the Jamboard link, then we can put our answers in there.
Okay.
And Maddie, that's your cue to go to the Jamboard, so that we'll share the screen with the Jamboard, but I will also be on there myself entering some of the answers. And then those of you who want to just go in, you have access as well. So you can put your Post-it notes with your answers in there yourself. So the first question, did you want me to read that, or you've got it, Elise?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, please, are folks in? It looks like we got a whole bunch of people in. That's good. What criteria do you think are essential for team selection? I think we, due to time, we might want to give, if there's another question. Oh, is there another question in this category?
There is, if you just hit next on that
Okay.
arrow at the top, there's a second question.
And the second question is, how can we engage the industry to support outreach to potential schools? And so we'd love to get your input on that. How should we select teams, and how can we engage industry to help us with the outreach that we're going to need to get to really blast these opportunities far and wide? And yeah, I'm going to make sure that people are familiar. Do you see what Bree is doing there? She's adding, yeah, she's put her cursor on the sticky note, and you just write on the sticky note, and it's just like working on a whiteboard. Great. Looks like people getting the hang of it.
That's awesome, because that wasn't even me.
Oh.
You guys are pros. Awesome.
A criteria, diversity, minority serving. We would really like to make sure that we get, especially in our outreach. So how can we make sure, thank you for that check mark, to get minority serving institutions in the know and best situated to participate? Anything, if people want to add thoughts related to people's initial sticky notes, you can just sort of clump them together too. The Jamboard's going to be open the whole time. Feel free, because we're going to have a bunch of Jamboard questions. So feel free to go back as you think of things. But for criteria and then outreach, doesn't look like people have input on outreach yet. Is anyone having challenges getting on the Jamboard, or just not in the mood to jam? And if that's the case, just write it in the chat too. It's totally fine.
Or just blurt it out.
Or blurt it out. Absolutely.
I mean,
yeah, exactly.
We're all friends here.
Those are teeny. Let's get that bigger.
Connecting to organizations that work with minority serving organizations, Society of Black Engineers, for example. Awesome.
Yes. And I know Heidi Tinnison, one of our speakers today, she's been doing this a lot, this type of outreach a lot for our collegiate wind competition. So Heidi, if you want to weigh in, now's a good time. It got loud.
I was going to add on to your outreach.
Yeah. Heidi?
Yeah. Oh, the echo was real delayed. It was strange.
Yeah, much better now.
Much better.
Good. I thought it was somebody else talking. going to add in, it'd be good to get thoughts on sort of newsletters that are subscribing to. That's really program specific. So if people have suggestions on newsletters, that'd be very helpful.
Okay, this is great. I know we have a lot to cover, though. Bree, I think we probably should keep this Jamboard open, but move on to stay on schedule.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
So yes, like Elise said, feel free to continue adding your thoughts to these questions. We need your help there. The next topic is on just our annual competition themes, because we need some input on that. So actually, we're going to go back to the Jamboard, Maddie. Sorry. We're going to continue jamming on themes, and Erin Forker actually is going to lead this this section to give us some insight into things that they've done.
So you're ready for me, Bree?
I'm ready for you, Erin.
Awesome. Let me get my camera on. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Erin Foraker. I work at the Bureau of Reclamation, and I'm excited to be here to talk about this STEM engagement as well as the collegiate competition. Reclamation, we've been working on prize competition since about 2013, so we've launched many of our own and had quite a few successes. I thought maybe I would start by just giving you guys some general ideas on some of the things that we've done for past prize competitions. So at Reclamation, when we think of hydropower, we really narrow that down to the power plant itself. And we know that from an industry perspective, that's much, much broader. And so a lot of our original prize competitions didn't really have to do with the hydropower plant itself, but more some of the environmental issues around it. So fish protection, maybe decreasing fish predation on different species, getting rid of, say, mussels in reservoirs, so fish exclusion, sediment removal techniques. So we've had just a variety, and there's so many of these. I don't have time to name all of them. Probably the one that we've done related to the power plant itself has been powering electronic instruments on a rotating shaft. That project really looked at how do we put instruments within our wheel pits and take a lot of data and to reduce that. So that's actually still a future idea that we didn't get a good solution that we're interested in for future solutions. Next, I'll just kind of list some of our current prize competitions that we have ongoing. Again, a lot of these aren't necessarily hydropower plant related, but the broader perspective. We've got an AMPS challenge, which is automated maintenance of protection systems. That one we're looking to increase plant generation and reliability through development of tools to improve online testing of protection systems and avoiding the opportunity cost of unit outages. We've also got imperfection detection. So Detect Me. Hold on a second. My screen just went blank. So that one's seeking portable tools that use non-destructive evaluation methods to assess the condition of existing reinforced polymer composite structures. We've got Water America's crops, so reducing canal seepage. We've got More Water, Less Concentrate. That really has to do with seeking innovative concepts to expand usable water supplies. So there's a whole list of current prize competitions and past ones on our website. So I don't want to take all of the time just going through the past ideas. Some of the future ideas that we're really interested in have to do with managing aquatic macrophytes in canals, looking into snow water equivalent estimates, so improving our forecasting tools, really looking at some of our data, our big data sets. We take so much data, but we don't necessarily do analysis on all of that data. So being able to take that data and produce algorithms that really tell us what don't we know about what that data is telling us. So maybe that's probably a good start, Bree. And I've asked Jen Beardsley on here, so she's on here. Jen, if you want to chime in, did I miss anything?
No, I think you hit all the key ones. We do very similar to many other agencies. A lot of our mission-related activities hit on hydropower. It's just that one-offs, but outcomes of these competitions can definitely benefit in the long run. So I think you hit them all, Erin, but I'm happy to answer questions.
Sure. Bree, does that cover it?
Yeah, I think so. I think if you can maybe put the link in the chat that you were referring to, that would be really helpful.
For the competition site, I
yeah,
put it in there.
Oh, you did. Oh, there it is. Okay, sorry, I missed it.
You're good. You got it.
Got a lot of things on my computer. Well, thank you both for being here. And if anybody has questions for them, definitely reach out to them as we go through. I'll be sending out everyone's contact information after the workshop, so you'll be able to contact each other.
And I think we need to jam again right now with themes that we want to include. We were envisioning a bit of a revolving theme competition where we can broach many different topics, one per year, if we were to do this annually. So what do you think should happen first? Do you think it should be a revolving theme? What should happen second? What would be a relevant theme right now, perhaps in the times of uncertainty and importance of risk management? We were thinking about cyber. There's a group at NREL that works on a cyber competition. If someone's on that works on that, please, now might be a nice time to chime in.
Hey, Elise, this is Anuj. Apologies for joining late. Since you specifically called it out, I was just typing in a note in the chat. But in regards to so I'm sorry, I'm a bit disconnected here. When it comes to a competition, is it something that we would provide to the participants in order to give answers to certain questions we pose, or are these themes?
Yeah,
okay.
It's often a challenge we want them to tackle. And cyber, you did bring that up, and I wanted to give you a chance to talk about what you're doing in cyber, because it could be an interesting bonus challenge or something that gets incorporated, particularly in current times with cyber being such a big, very, very relevant and important topic. So, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, no, and that is exciting. I mean, within the projects that we're working on, it's definitely, we're looking into the risk management aspects for sure. But the challenges that we've come across is these plans and the stakeholders who are making these decisions. It's usually the cyber portion of it is on the back burner, because when it comes to the impacts, or at least overall impacts, either environmental or economical, even operational, a lot of focus is on maintaining and making sure the operations is not affected, and the neighborhood is taken care of. But I think all of these impacts also align and need to be considered from a cyber angle, because if there is a cyber attack, the consequences can blend into all of these impacts. And so a challenge on those lines would be beneficial in terms of like, what are the critical operations? What are the critical cyber assets that you would prioritize at a given time, or within going through an incident, for example? How do you isolate your critical operations if there were an attack that was going to happen or something like that, right? I could think of a way to come up with a challenge on those lines.
Thank you so much, Anush. That's great. Thank you. So somebody wrote, would go with the basics for the pilot year. What are you thinking, if you're all right with chiming in here?
Sorry to be the culprit. So just to back up, I think there's a bit here with my experience with capstone professors. They're a little bit different than like tenured professors. So sometimes capstone professors are really just like lecturers or associate, they're basically like engineering masters folks who then like come in and do the applied projects, which is a little bit different than the tenured professors. And so they're trying to get an industry problem for their capstone students. And so they're balancing, 5 or 6 teams necessarily. What I'm observing with the Solar District Cup is that contest is actually scalable across 4 or 5 or 6 teams working in parallel for a professor versus 6 different teams going in different directions. And so when I say the basics, is just a basic case study. I think the way the question is, you're saying, hey, if we give them money, then you start to get into like a down select. But Solar District Cup went from like 40 to 75 teams this past year. It basically 2x'd in a year. So I'm thinking more towards just basic exposure, a great case study analysis. They can complete it. They don't need to travel anywhere. They don't need any materials. That's how I lean towards, because it's scalable. But that's just one of many perspectives.
Yes, thank you for that. And perhaps we can do both. We can have a basic and a, something that can extend to in-person as well, just to broaden our exposure and our impact. Does anyone else want to talk about their stickies? Or Bree, if we're totally off schedule, feel free to put us back in line.
This is good discussion, but we do need to move on to the next topic at hand, which is the detailed technical design. Michael Ingram's going to talk about that. So
this looks out of order. Oh,
it is out of order because we're going to go back to the slides, actually.
Oh, thank you.
Maddie.
Okay. And Mike, if you could introduce yourself as well when you're because you haven't done that yet, that'd be great.
Sure thing. While she's dialing through the slides, my name is Michael Ingram. I've been with NREL about 6 years and have had the opportunity the last 4 to work closely with Elise on a number of hydropower projects here at the lab. I started off working with a cross-lab project on valuing hydropower. We talked a little bit about integrating hydro or integrating renewables with hydro, maybe. What's the value of that? And I was involved in an important study looking at that. And since that time, I've had an opportunity to work with a number of folks looking at pump storage hydro and non-power dams. It's been very interesting. Before joining NREL, I worked at the Tennessee Valley Authority for about 28 years. About 10 of that was in our river system operations and environment. And someone, I forget who, mentioned generations of folks that worked in the hydro. My father didn't work in hydro, but my wife does. She's a dam engineer. I remind her of that every day. She's worked in dam safety at TVA for 28 years, and so she knows all the things to keep the keep the dam safe. I was paying very close attention to the themes. Being an engineer, it's important to understand, well, what are you trying to build? And so we looked at first, when we were talking about the technical design, if you will. So how would we design the competition? We looked at the MEC, the marine requirements. And if you just start with that, then you've already decided what your theme is. And so I think Elise encouraged me to step back and think about how the elements of the design competition, and some of them are listed here, support the themes. And maybe that's a good way to think about this. Just from an engineering perspective, if I wanted to focus on, say, non-powered dams, that one was one of the topics that came up, or new pump storage, or in conduit hydro in an urban environment. What are the things that are a little bit like motherhood and apple pie from a generating perspective? So what are the objectives of that design? What are you trying to accomplish? And for each of those, iterating those and having a good understanding of how they fit together. It wouldn't be hydropower. It wouldn't be making hydropower electric if we didn't think about the power performance analysis, including the energy and the adequacy and the environment, or the network where it will be connected, supporting the load and working possibly with integration of renewables, the mechanical and electrical load analysis, the safety factors associated with that, optimizing the system to maybe not overcome resource intermittency, but to complement that and to work well with it. Engineering drawings and diagrams. You can't be an engineer unless you have the schematics and the civil drawings that convey to the folks that are going to be implementing your design. Incorporation of environmental and sustainability factors. Depending on what the theme is focused on, that may have more or less impact. And if we, if the designers or the participants are asked to select where regionally their project or their design might be implemented, then it changes that scope. In Tennessee, the environmental considerations are different than, say, they are in Oregon or in Colorado. So, that's an important consideration for the competition, possibly. Incorporation of user needs as part of the design system. And that's looking back at, well, who are the stakeholders involved in this project? And that there's one of these sticky notes that I saw that maybe think about how to develop the competition so that multiple careers or pursuits can be involved. So business, cybersecurity, computer scientists, as well as electrical and mechanical and civil engineers. Don't forget the civil engineers, how they may be involved, bring them all together so that you don't just have, one college or one part of the university focused on the design competition. I'll hand it back. I only had a few minutes, Elise. If you want to, I don't know if we're going to jam on this or how you want to, what we want to do.
I thought we'd ask some questions, because we skipped a slide here, which I think might have been important to set the stage for this, which is what we were originally thinking based on what we've seen be successful from other collegiate competitions that we've either hosted or we've seen being hosted by others. We usually see a design element. We see, sometimes we see a build and a test element. And we want to talk a little bit about that. We often see a component that we're going to talk about next, which is beyond design, build, test, to really broaden and ensure interdisciplinary approach. And Heidi will talk about that next. And then an outreach component. So that's kind of where that's our starting point right now. And so of those different components, we wanted to start with first the themes, because there are many ways directions we can go here. And then we want to go into Okay, so assuming we're going to have a design contest, because really that capstone audience is a big one. And we really enjoy having hydropower be a topic in capstone, but it still can be interdisciplinary. It does not have to just be engineering. There's many ways that we can make it broader, but it does need to have a design element. So if we do non-power dams, just using Michael's example, taking that a bit further, and then saying, okay, students, the challenge we're going to give you this year is how would you replace roller gates with a hydropower turbine while mitigating any environmental implications on the waterway or something like that, just for example. Do these design elements apply? Are they broad enough that we could use the same kind of design elements? Taking it one step further, how could we build something like that? Is that even buildable, or should we not even think about a build? In hydropower, it might be challenging, but might be a really interesting and tremendous opportunity to do something really cool, particularly if we ask for a design build in the environmental mitigation segment or something like that. Right now in this first year, we likely can't do a test because we don't have a test stand. But what could it look like in the future? Should we all congregate around a canal and have a in-person test element? And then if so, I know we're not going to get to many of these, but what would be the testing parameters? So that's a lot, and we're already out of time, but like what could a couple people maybe come up with some ideas like about what a build could look like, or what future test components could look like?
You're asking folks to put some ideas on the Jamboard, or just
I don't think we created a jam for this, so
No,
in the chat or talk, yeah. And I know we won't have time for much, but I wanted to throw the question out there because we're going to be asking this over and over and over. So we are open and hungry for your feedback, particularly in this area, because this is such it's a challenge and an opportunity. It's kind of exciting. We could build a flume and have a test section. But how do we keep it nimble enough to cover different challenges over the years to match the themes? For collegiate wind, we're doing something cool this year. We're moving into the offshore space and putting a water tank below our wind tunnel to test offshore wind foundations. Could we do something like that for hydropower? Not that, obviously, but be creative like that.
Looks like Mike Baskins opened his camera. Maybe he's got some ideas.
Cool.
Just wanted to show that I was actively engaged. Sorry.
Who else is actively engaged? Show me your face.
But just on what you just said, I am impressed with the jump into STEM model with the follow-on internship. And so I don't know if the follow-on internship, because sometimes it's just hard to move students in the school year to a location. The only thing I was going to add is that I'm fascinated by the modular build instead of like the aggregated build, but like here's your kit, professor and team, do your build in your space. Good luck, thumbs up, go ahead, versus the aggregated national. I'll stop.
And we can build it modular. We were thinking, if we had a modular build, Aaron, maybe this question is for you if you're there. We could do it at the Federal Center at your facility, and test it at your current facility, your test facility, in the future.
The TSC lab would be perfect.
Yeah, I think we'd be open to those things. I think you have to just realize there are limitations that we do have a lot of outsiders who come in and think we're going to be able to test something there, and we just don't have the technical capability. But I think absolutely it would be something that we would support if we were able to, and we'd be interested in for sure.
Cool.
Yeah, we can explore that. That's great. Thanks.
Somebody put something in the chat. Elise, maybe demonstrate a hack on the hydro pump HMI. Anuj put that. I think I might have said your name. Sorry.
No, you're good. Just being
Troublemaker.
On the design and testing aspects of the discussion, I was just like, there might be some possibility to demonstrate a small, I mean, not demonstrate the actual hack, but if it is like a small setup of a pump on the operational technology side, we could put the emphasis on why do you want inherently secure systems so that such hacks doesn't happen. So that's how you design it, right?
Mm-hmm. Thanks for that. And the target audience, that's another question for that we want to ask the group. Like we've focused on the undergraduate community. Often it's seniors, but we have been encouraging in other collegiate competitions a smattering across the different levels, so sophomores, juniors, seniors, so that you can have a continual learning environment. And then sometimes we have graduate students on MEC. You can have graduate students on the team on our collegiate win competition. You cannot, but only as a mentor. So what do you think, Michael?
Do I like the range and the continuity? Yes. I mean, just a one-off, and the idea of possibly thinking about this as an extension through an internship. I think providing that continuity to the students and reinforcing what they may have learned in the prior year, and then maybe the chance to spend time with someone at the Bureau or the Corps or TVA or one of the many independent, the IOUs that have hydropower, like Southern and others. I think that would be that would get toward the goal of what it seems DOE wants, is encouraging students to enter the hydropower industry. I think that's a great way to reinforce that.
Well, I have to jump in and say it's Heidi's turn because we need to hear from her. And this is really good conversation. We could totally spend a lot of time doing this, and it's really good. So it's hard for me to interrupt and say it's time to move on, but we do have to let Heidi have a chance to talk to us. So Heidi, the virtual floor is yours. We don't hear you, Heidi. Oh, there you
Thanks,
are.
Bree.
Okay.
Okay, couldn't hear me. Well, so I'll start again. I'm Heidi Tennyson, for those who don't know me. I've been at NREL for about 6 years and working in distributed wind and wind workforce development. So I'm mostly focusing on the collegiate wind competition and now increasingly working on water STEM projects. And this is continuing on this contest development arc we're talking about, moving from technical design to a more broad business focused contest. We've approached this differently throughout the years in the collegiate wind competition and different in collegiate wind versus the marine energy collegiate competition. We've done initially something that's more business plan focused, and that's where marine energy competition is now. But it didn't make that much sense in the collegiate wind competition. It was sort of one of these key themes we're talking about is really developing skills that would make students marketable to enter the industry. And it was a little bit of a fictitious alignment between this business plan, sort of marketing a very small turbine, something that's far too small to power any kind of home, really more like a, I don't know, cell phone charger. So we moved into this larger business project development contest, and that's worked really well for our competition because it's very similar to activities that happen in the industry, in the wind industry, and so it has been a really effective mechanism for students to enter the industry. So that's been really exciting. And so now, as we're thinking about hydropower, we're wondering what would be a good multidisciplinary and broad more business focused challenge, one where you could get more of the student population engaged, not just engineers, because it's easy. Well, it's easy for me to be engineer focused. And what could help students to sort of on the other end of skills development, just get inspired about hydropower and understand where hydropower fits into a 100% renewable future. Just be curious on people's thoughts. Is there a sort of, and this is a hard conversation because there's so many options in hydropower. It's much more limited in wind energy, but curious if people have thoughts. Do we want them to do project development for a new hydropower plant? Business development, yeah, maybe at least you can sort of chime in a little bit more on marine energy structure. I'm less familiar with that.
Oh, sure. I was just answering your question on the Marine Energy Collegiate Competition. It did blend itself very nicely, at least so far, with the idea of a business plan approach, because it's such a new and nascent field and so many new opportunities and ideas are around. Hydropower is different. It's very similar in a way to what we do in wind, and maybe more lend itself better to a project development contest element, because there are so many unique geographically significant issues and opportunities around the country. So we could, and even on the coasts, we could revolve it in alignment with a theme, a changing theme, to address and include different aspects of the hydropower industry and challenges that we want our students to be able to help overcome.
Yeah, so another thought we've had is maybe something more related to an O&M plan or strategy, maybe identifying a specific component or substructure of a dam, if I was looking at the larger dam theme, and then figuring out kind of what does that maintenance strategy look like. You know, that's a really big piece in aging dams.
Mm-hmm. That might be perfect.
One place I tend to try to focus on collegiate wind is places where students could gain skills where they might most easily be able to enter the job. So things that are relevant to entry level positions and getting those kinds of skills.
This is a good comment. I mean, we're in a good position to really have it work, have some contest or challenge that dovetails really nicely with hydro and wind, or hydro and solar, and with a grid angle. So I like that one.
So maybe it could even be some sort of regional study, maybe in the team's home state, for how much sort of wind and solar could be deployed on their grid with the alongside the hydro assets or something like that.
Mm-hmm. These are so small, I can't see.
I know. Turn my camera off so you don't.
I gotta zoom.
Yeah, connecting it to climate change. Yeah, I like that.
I'm seeing a systems theme. No question. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I haven't seen those case studies from the Solar District Cup, but that's got a similar kind of larger scale planning effort, right?
They had 3 different case studies. One was like a university campus, I think from Lincoln, Nebraska, but it was their real data. And they had the 3 tracks were 3 different case studies. But it had technical as well as financial, and they had a storage component, I might add. So it was solar plus storage, which seemed to be a nice, ties into this conversation of like, where else could it go, which also brought in time of use.
That's great.
Yes, thank you.
Cool. Well, continue to throw your ideas into the Jamboard. And we're going to move on and let Betsy talk to us about the Connections Creations Contest. Betsy? So that means, Maddie, I'm sorry, we're going to go back to the slides again.
Thank you, Maddie and Bree. So hi there, I'm Betsy Stratton. I am the Communications Project Manager for NREL's Water and Advanced Manufacturing Programs and the lead comms rep for the Marine Energy Collegiate Competition. So I'm here to talk to you about how and why project outreach and engagement with your community is important. And so for MEC, teams are required to complete project outreach and engage with the communities. It's a requirement that's in the rules and requirements document. And so teams this year will be required to submit an outreach plan and timeline at the end of the fall semester. The summary of these activities will be included in the team presentations and final reports as well. And then as an added incentive, there is a separate award category specifically for outreach and engagement for those that go the extra mile engaging with their audience. And so what does an effective outreach engagement strategy look like? So it inspires and encourages community and stakeholder engagement, which can lead to collaboration, information sharing, and even make potential connections with future employers. It's an opportunity for the students to showcase their work. You know, students work on their projects for nearly a year, at least with MEC. And I assume with this competition, they will as well. And they're working towards, you know, one common positive goal. So why wouldn't they want to toot their own horn? Promoting their work may lead to career opportunities, collaboration, and further innovation. And so it also helps spread the message of the collegiate competition, whether that be HEC or HCC. And the way I see that is it's kind of free advertisement for the competition, right? Like requiring students to engage in outreach amplifies the competition and puts a spotlight on the advancements and the really great work that WPTO and the national labs are working on. Also, social media is a really popular outlet for the next generation of thinkers and makers. And so to change the perception of hydro and prove that it isn't, you know, just your grandfather's hydro, we should have teams leverage those platforms to reach those younger audiences. It also encourages future competitors and hydro workers. Similar to the previous point, it demonstrates the possibilities in the hydro industry and just encourages more folks to join the competitions and ultimately address the aging workforce. The age-old saying of while we teach, we learn. There's no really better way to becoming a master of your craft than by teaching those around you. So encouraging those students to teach kids at a local school about their concept or speak at one of their engineering lectures, let's say, really helps to enforce the students' learning. It provides a great opportunity to change the current perception of hydro. Like I said, we don't want the perception that it's an aging industry, and so that, you know, that type of outreach, excuse me, will really change the narrative, which I think is one of the really key goals of this competition. It allows for creativity, problem solving, and engagement with students outside of the engineering fields or you know, hydro specific fields. It's a creative outlet. They have an opportunity to reach to other disciplines, departments, or fields and problem solve across different industries. Lastly, the deliverables that these students would be required to submit in order to meet this requirement would inform next generation innovators. As you can see, sorry about my dog. As you can see in the slide, these are some of the awesome submissions that the MEC students submitted last year for the 2021 competition. They did everything from a comic book to a video game to creating these educational toolkits that they then distributed to local primary classrooms so that students could learn. So there's a really cool opportunity here to reach those specific groups. And so if we could go to the next slide, I'll just kind of end with a couple examples. So a little outreach can go a long way. These are just a few really cool examples of what happened last year with MEC. The bottom two, 3 winners claimed top honors at 2021 Marine Energy Collegiate Competition, and Manhattan College is, you know, featured in the offshore energy website article. These can really be good point of references when they're looking for, I'm so sorry, everyone. Love the work from home environment. Really kind of give a good point of reference for students to when they're, you know, on job interviews or trying to find partners to help fund certain projects. Like, these are really good things to really showcase how they've done it. And then also this renewable ocean energy tweet, it's not just that it's great for the students, it's also good for the national labs and for DOE, because this was one of the top engaged with posts on the NREL Instagram platform in the last 7 years. And so I think it just shows that it's good for all parties involved. And with that, I will turn my mic off and hand it back to Heidi.
Don't worry, Betsy, about that.
Never get a 3-month-old puppy. That's the other learning experience in this workshop.
I think we do want to turn this back to so what do you see here, and what did Betsy share that you want to, I mean, this is awesome, of course, and I think there's a way that we can fold in a contest within our competition that ensures the community engagement, and we've been testing that out with MEC, Marine Energy Collegiate Competition, with Collegiate Wind Competition, and we want to continue this and would love any thoughts to on how we can have a hydro focus on that kind of engagement.
I think Heidi's frozen.
Those submissions are amazing.
And Sean from Bonneville, I think we should talk. I feel like you're going to have a lot of good ideas here in this front. So
noted. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, well, we'll jump to Heidi's portion on engagement. I know that she has a slide first, and then we'll jump to the Jamboard again.
You said it was frozen, Bree. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you now, but you were frozen there for a minute.
Okay. Well, it's hard to follow up, Betsy, with this one, but one of the big things we're always focusing on with collegiate competitions is connecting industry with both the faculty and students, and also continuing to engage with industry for competition design evolution, similar to what we're doing today. So in thinking about, connecting with faculty and students, we've have this expectation that through these competitions we can help support the development of sustainable power programs across and within the institutions that the faculty are working in. So and I'll introduce all of these and then we can go to the Jamboard. But curious to get thoughts on sort of how we can most effectively connect, especially new professors with experts in the industry to get the support they need. And then focusing on students, it's amazing to have opportunities not only to sort of showcase the work that they've done over the year and have an opportunity to learn valuable skills in presenting work and communicating what they've learned, but also to do really effective networking to seek out those job opportunities and to have connections with internships, whether, throughout the year and as they get towards the end of their schooling. And then really want to find the right partners to connect with on an ongoing basis. We've had pretty good success in forming advisory boards with industry for a number of the collegiate competitions. And so we'd love to get some input on who these stakeholders should be, and have listed some on this as well as the Jamboard. Maybe we can go to the Jamboard and see if there's any input on these topics. Yeah, so oftentimes we just leave this open-ended to professors and hope that they can reach out to the right industry advisors and make good connections. But curious if anybody has any creative ideas for how to make those connections most effectively without sort of NREL making one-to-one connections with all of the people that we know in industry. I know when I'm advising students to make the connections, I often advise them to look to LinkedIn or to sign up for webinars and try to introduce themselves after those webinars, go to conferences. And we could just keep moving on. It's just so can show all of these, and if people have ideas, they can add to them.
Yeah, we got one.
It's just awesome. Zoom pass. Well, students, oh
This
yeah,
also
I like
this
that.
also blends in, Heidi, with just seeing, you know, who knows people at their you know, their college alma mater. You know, we still have connections from college, and so there are certain people, you know, that could help connect us, you know, with those universities in that way.
Absolutely. Yep, that's great. Definitely goes both directions. And then maybe looking at student connections. So there are a couple of conferences that we've identified. Clean Currents in the fall and late winter at the NWHA conference. We know there are lots of internship opportunities. It's something that's an ongoing mission to collect those for students, to share them through students. I know we're starting a number of LinkedIn groups through many of the competitions to connect industry with alumni and share those opportunities. I know there are job fairs at some universities, but we often hear from Collegiate Wind that industry isn't showing up directly at the universities as often as they would like. Maybe there's more appetite today or maybe less appetite for virtual engagements. I think both the access and the fatigue are very true in this ongoing virtual reality.
Amen to that. Sorry, that was honest. Very honest.
Oh, real industry pitches. Yeah, that's interesting. I like that idea. There are some pretty cool entrepreneurial challenges. Kind of related to another theme we've had on student engagement, that there's probably a lot of value in the sort of cross-cutting activities for different programs where maybe you're not seeing an entrepreneurial pitch for the specific water technology that you want, but watching it for wind energy might be equally valuable. Regular engagement, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, promoting the SULI, yeah, agreed. We do that every year, get a whole panel of the competitions to communicate to the SULI participants. That's great. We can keep rolling on. I know we're running rapidly out of time here. I know we just have a couple more minutes. So just, a couple more Jamboards if people have ideas. Or we can skip on. People can go back to the Jamboard since they have access to it now. But just if there are thoughts on other members that could be included in an industry advisory board, who should we not forget to include or invite? And then the last one is other ways to keep informing the industry of ongoing analysis that we have, as well as ways to provide input that aren't specific one-off engagements like this necessarily, or continuing in our dialogue series, but also in other regularly scheduled events.
Well, we do have just a few minutes if you want to continue your thoughts on the industry engagement. If you have a few ideas that you wanted to post into the Jamboard, you can certainly do that. The next question that we've all been waiting for is, what should we call it? So we're going to go to the polling poll EV to put in our ideas about what we should call it. Is it a Hydropower Collegiate Competition, HCC? Is it a HEC to go with MEC? Is there some other name?
Hydroelectric Collegiate Competition.
Hydroelectric Collegiate Competition. It's like naming a dog. I always, I can always come up with really good names for other people's dogs, but when I would actually have my own, I couldn't think of one. So,
or CHC, Collegiate Hydro Competition. Collegiate Hydro, CHC.
Do you all still have, let me put just make sure that everybody has the poll EV link.
I just suggest, like, I know that we talk about like trying to make hydro sexy and like rebranding it, and I think by just putting like hydro in it, I think we kind of limit that capacity. I like the connection to climate. I like the connection to like innovation. So, if it's a hydropower innovation or hydropower climate solutions, I think that type of thing gets people who maybe would pass up just a hydro challenge. They go, oh, hydropower, okay. Getting some of those like buzzwords in there might be helpful.
So in the hike instance, Hydropower Collegiate Competition, it could be Hydropower Innovations Collegiate Competition and truly be a hike. Huh.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Or like hydropower futures or climate. I just feel like you need something in there that gives students and professors that indication that it's looking forward.
Next generation water power competition. I like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Collegiate competition aspect helps in advertising, so folks understand it's student-based.
So we can try to keep that in there for sure. I mean, we can keep that in there.
Hydropower Climate Solutions Competition. That has a nice ring to it.
Collegiate Climate Solutions Collegiate Competition, HCS.
It always has to be an acronym. We could never have a name and not have an acronym as well.
Oh my gosh.
That's right. What would I do with all my time that I spend Googling acronyms?
The struggle is real.
Folks are missing the hydro role in carbon solutions piece. That's a good point. It's a really good point. And also we're missing maybe the idea of hydro as an enabler and the ability to and the importance of linking it up with other renewables. So is there something in there? Is that a nugget that could drive us in one direction?
Well, and also if we ever wanted to add the trades to it, which I think we do, then if it's got collegiate in it, then it kind of
talent competition or yes.
Market hydropower better as a renewable energy source. Hydropower, your renewable energy
student competition. Student competition is good. I don't think it's collegiate sounding. I think it's anybody can be a student. I could be a student.
I'm a student daily.
Yeah.
Critical math. And now y'all are just being silly. I love it. Well, this is very cool. And we have a few more minutes to talk about it. So if you have ideas to put in there for a name, if you have ideas to go back to on the Jamboard for the industry engagement piece, because I don't see that anybody's put any stickies on that last page, page 8 on industry engagement. So maybe we could hop back there real quick, Maddie. Yeah. So we've got a few on that page, which is good. Who should be on the industry advisory board?
Mm-hmm.
Major manufacturers should be involved. NWHA, NHA, absolutely.
Kyle from WAPA, is there others in your neck of the woods that should be in our core group? Or Sean?
So I have to look up what these industry. I'm focusing on energy intensive industries, at least in the Pacific Northwest. We keep having energy intensive industries wanting to be here because of the low, affordable, clean hydropower. And I'm wondering, is there an industry cluster analysis you can do instead of going straight to, of course, NWHA or NHA, right, has company members, but those are like the first tier. And then, because we work with our Conic Foundation, and some of these companies that do like 3D metal printing of components for things, or there's like coil people. Ooh. I'm looking at ideas. Anyway, I don't know if I answered you called my name, so I'm saying something.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm good at cold calling. I was trying. Yeah, thank you very much.
Sure, I'll keep thinking.
Thanks.
No, this is good. I think that was a good point. If industry recognizes participating in the competition as a distinguishing application component or junior fellows program, it may help connect industry and the competition closely.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, so we have just a few more minutes. Can we skip to that last one? Oh, look, somebody's doing their homework. Do the last one. So other thoughts on engaging industry to ensure continual improvement and maintaining industry relevant skills development. So getting involved in competition themes and the challenge development.
So we, just a little more background here, like we want to keep this conversation going, as we said in the beginning. This is kind of coming around full circle. We are going to have a workshop somehow, some way at Clean Currents, part virtual, part in person. We'll collect more information. We'll cull through all the information we got today and refine, and then try to get to the next level through the audience to Clean Currents. We will include this as a regular topic at other relevant dialogue series and our summits. We have summits included in our water STEM project. This is it will be a very important component to continually refine. Bree has offered to have us speak to the board members at Hydro Foundation. We should probably pursue similar engagement with NHA and NWHA. We want to talk with the MOU partners, that just for the group's edification, that's the MOU between DOE and the Bureau of Brac and the Army Corps on multiple topics in hydropower. One of those is workforce development. So we want to ensure alignment there and engagement. So we're looking for what else? What else should we do to ensure the relevancy and impact of this activity?
There's a couple of great suggestions here that I hadn't thought of, involving the training departments of the hydro industry partners. It's great.
Yes.
And linking competition themes to skills, certificates, or other credentials industry folks need to achieve and maintain.
Those are good. That's great.
And I think part of it is having those surveys and then sort of presenting the results of those surveys and then getting feedback on kind of how we're interpreting those to inform this competition development as well.
I was going to raise my hand. This is Sean again. You know, when I put that yellow sticky there, I think it's yellow. You know, we've heard like companies like Siemens, for instance, have helped community colleges develop credentials that they needed to hire someone that didn't exist. And I don't know if this would feed into those pipelines of like credentialing for employees. And so some of the stuff that you're talking about, which is beyond, there's so many experts on this call that know that stuff, whatever those stuff is that people need to be skilled in, could that be linked? Because then the industry will go, ooh, people are going to come out of this having something I need.
Yes.
I love that. But that's a question. So who can answer that? Steve asked, do students get credit for their participation in these competitions? And is there a way to get them credits?
Yes. Heidi, I'm going to punt to you.
It depends on how the university structures their program. Oftentimes at the engineering side, we do see it structured with capstone projects, but a lot of other times it's part of clubs.
Michael?
So just because early on you'd said that like only 3 universities have like a hydro course. And I used to be at EERE and was co-located with the education team in Tech to Market. This was a couple years back, but I always wondered like why didn't DOE just create its own courses? It's kind of out of the DOE lane, but that other comment of like the trades, is there something broader here just to create a hydro course that's plug and play that professors can grab and use that obviously has the competition component, but it sounds like there's a bigger gap in just the educational realm for hydropower. And whether it meets a credential, it could as well. But I always wonder, like, you have all this technical talent, but like professors don't always have access to that. So could you just create the course?
We are exploring that as part of our water STEM project. We have been given a really great model. Tom Acker from Northern Arizona University, with a bunch of schools, developed a wind U for using it for the wind equivalent challenges in the wind industry. And we've been discussing embarking upon that as part of this project, where we have a multi-university, colleges included in a consortium to share credentials towards a certification in hydropower. It seems like a definite need. It's just it's a big ticket item, so it's taken a little while to sort of get that train rolling.
Well, I want to be cognizant of everyone's time because we are at the 5 o'clock Mountain Time hour, which means that we're at the 7 o'clock Eastern Time hour for those of you who are on Eastern Time. So thank you for joining us today and having this conversation. It is not over, like Elise said. We are continuing this conversation. Here are all of our contacts. If you guys think of anything, definitely email us. You have access to the Jamboard. There are blank sheets there, so you're welcome to just throw out any idea that you have that you'd like us to consider. You can throw into those Jamboards. So we will be in touch about our next workshop, and we hope you have a wonderful evening. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.